Hello everyone, welcome to the Messengers for Christ YouTube channel. In this video we're going to talk about our choice of an airplane for use on the mission field in Ecuador. A lot of preparation went into selecting appropriate aircraft and the options with those aircraft. Just a lot of decisions went into that. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes on that and explain a little bit about that selection process and what we were looking for. First off, we were looking for an airplane that is reliable, an airplane that has a good reputation. We want something that has a good availability of parts, so we can find parts when we do need to make repairs. And also an airplane that mechanics readily know. That narrowed our choice down quite a bit. We looked at all the options, the prices, the capabilities of the aircraft, and settled on the Cessna 172 as what we felt was the best choice to start with. Now the 172, depending on how old it is, comes with different engine options. Originally, the 172 started with a 145 horsepower engine. Currently, the brand new ones are shipping with 180 horsepower engines. Now you can upgrade the engine on an older one and give it that extra power, that extra capability. And one of the advantages to doing this to an older aircraft is that the newer aircraft are actually built a little bit heavier. They have more upholstery inside, more things that just aren't really needed but add weight. So you'll find that in the new ones, even with the bigger engine, you don't really have any better carrying capacity than you did in the old ones. Now, when you upgrade an old one to the 180 horsepower engine, you get a very capable airplane. You increase your gross weight by 200 pounds, which actually enables you to fill that fourth seat. Normally, unless you have very, very small people or children, you can't use all four seats. And that is a compromise in most airplanes. So that is one of the choices we were looking at. We're looking at a little bit older Cessna 172 with the 180 horsepower conversion. I found that those were a little harder to find. The value right now in buying a 172 and then upgrading the engine is not the best. You might as well just start with something like a 180 or a 182, because the 182 comes with a 235 horsepower engine, little heavier aircraft, a little roomier, but has similar limitations. But with the 235, you should be able to carry 4 people. Problem is, it also uses more fuel, operating costs are higher per hour, and getting it is a higher cost to begin with. Then we were looking for the value. Buying one that has all this work done to it already, the bigger engine and some other modifications that we'd like to have, I'll talk about in a minute. The value was hard to find. To get what we wanted, we were looking up in the $180,000 range. With this environment we have right now with the shipping, supply chain issues, prices are going up on everything. You may have noticed cars have gone way up. Houses have gone way up. Well, airplanes have followed. They've gone way up as well. And part of it is that supply chain issue, and part of it is just people are seeing that, oh, this other stuff is selling for more. I can get more for my airplane. So it's hard finding an airplane at a good, reasonable price. Just 3 years ago, you could probably have found this type of an airplane for $60,000, $70,000. Now you're looking at $130,000 to $180,000. So we're looking for something that's going to give us the best value for our dollar. This is for use on the mission field, and we want to be as wise stewards as we can with God's money. Now, I found an airplane, and this airplane is a Cessna 172. It is a 1966 model, and 2 weeks ago we purchased this airplane. This airplane was quite inexpensive because it had a lot of problems with it. Now, these are not major problems, and in fact almost every single problem with this airplane is something that we wanted to upgrade in the first place. And I'm going to tell you about those things now. One I mentioned already, the engine. We want to get the 180 horsepower engine. This airplane did not have that. It had the 145 horsepower engine. Now, this engine was involved in a prop strike. That means the propeller hit the ground, and it was due to a maintenance error. A mechanic disassembled the nose gear, did some repairs, and when he put it back together, he used aluminum rivets instead of stainless steel rivets. Aluminum rivets are a lot softer, and with the normal forces of taxiing the airplane and taking off and landing, there was an incident when this airplane was taxiing and the nose gear collapsed because those rivets all broke. This caused a little bit of damage to the front end of the airplane, very easily repairable, but it caused the propeller to hit the ground. The propeller is completely destroyed, and when a propeller hits the ground, normally the engine has to be rebuilt. And this is because you don't know what kind of damage that sudden stop has had on the internal components. You've got a lot of things inside that engine moving very rapidly that suddenly came to a stop. You've got your crankshaft spinning around. You've got your connecting rods and your pistons all moving in there. And all of those can develop micro cracks, things that you can't see with the bare eye and that you don't see any effect of right away. And those things will all be a possible issue, and you don't want that to crop up when you're out flying over the jungle of Ecuador and have no place to land. So basically you have to tear the engine down, you have to send the crankshaft out, the connecting rods, things like that, send them to a shop and have them checked with x-rays, magnafluxing, they have different test methods they do, and look for any stress cracks or anything in there that could be a warning sign or a problem. Now this engine, for one, is the engine we don't want. It can't be upgraded to a larger horsepower. We have to replace it for that. Two, a rebuild of this engine costs approximately $30,000 and can take up to a year to have done. So what that did is made this airplane an excellent opportunity to upgrade it to the 180 horsepower engine, because this engine has a lot of money that needs to be put into it to get it flying again, and it's the less desirable option. So I added up the cost of buying a new engine, which has gone up significantly in the last 3 years, plus the cost of the airplane and the cost of the other repairs that need to be done, and found that if I do the work and have an A&P mechanic check it and sign it all off, which I have 2 mechanics ready to do that, we can save quite a bit of money, somewhere between $20,000 and maybe even a little bit more because of the maintenance costs. For background, I have built an airplane before. I built an all-metal airplane from a set of plans. I made every single part in that airplane. I then assembled the whole airplane and flew that. One reason I did that was to build flight time towards my commercial and instrument ratings plus an instructor rating in the future. I now have that flight time because I used my own airplane to do that, and it was much more economical than renting an airplane. The second reason is because all of that experience, 1,500 hours worth of experience, is experience that I can use when working on a plane like a Cessna 172. I am not a legal A&P mechanic, but I have half of the experience that they need to become an A&P mechanic. I would have to go to school, have to get additional training, things like that, and it's not something I want to do, one, at my age, and two, with the time I have. I would rather try to get this work done, get the airplane down and start flying it, instead of go working in an airport somewhere and finishing all of that up. We have currently raised about 50% of the cost of building this airplane out completely. We're still trying to raise funds for that, so we appreciate if you consider helping us on that matter. It is not cheap, but it's going to an excellent purpose. Now, I mentioned that nose gear had collapsed and caused some damage. One of the pieces that was damaged is this. This is the top nose gear piece. It bolts onto the firewall, and the top of the nose gear tube slides into this, and a bolt holds it in place. Now, the one that was on the airplane, these are all rivets on both sides. Those are what broke. At the top are 2 bolts. So basically, this nose gear was being held onto the airplane at the top by 2 bolts. When it had the stress in the accident, these 2 little tabs right here broke off. Those pieces are still on the airplane, and this piece came off with the nose gear. It also caused the bottom piece, which has since been replaced but not reattached, to also pull out of the airplane. Since we're going to upgrade the engine, I'm not concerned about the old engine being damaged. That's fine, doesn't matter. The new nose gear piece here, I can replace that. As you can see, most of you could probably replace that. We're talking 4 rivets on each side, total 8 rivets, and 2 bolts. Not very difficult, not difficult at all. The bottom piece is very similar in how it's attached. One of the things that we wanted to do, because we're going to be using this airplane mostly in jungle strips in Ecuador, is upgrade the landing gear to a heavier duty landing gear. The nose gear is designed, the fork, for a 6.0 tire. That means 6 inches out from the rim. The rim is 6 inches, and it has just the clearance for that. You can't put a bigger tire on that. Often when you're working on rough fields or the bush, it's better to have a bigger tire. With this nose fork, we can't do that, but we can upgrade that to one that will fit the biggest tire that the airplane is allowed to have, which is 8.5. Doesn't sound like a big increase, but that's 2.5 inches on each side, which means your tire is 5 inches bigger, and it makes a big difference in how it handles on rough terrain, mud, puddles, holes, sticks, branches, anything else that might be out there. It makes a real big difference in how it handles it, which makes it safer to handle on the ground. The main wheels we can already do that with. You just have to upgrade the brakes and the discs to handle the extra forces that the bigger wheels will put on it so you can stop like you need to. One of the things missing on this airplane happens to be the brake calipers. Now, when this accident happened with this airplane, the insurance company decided they didn't want to put the money into repairing this airplane at the time. It probably would have been worth their time, but they just didn't want to deal with it. And an airplane like this, you can strip it down and sell parts like this really, really expensive. I got a good deal on this part. This part was $220. New from the factory, this is $2,500. So if we can save some money like that, it's well worth it. But the insurance company was going to start taking things apart. They can sell a wing for $7,500, and they were going to take both the wings off and sell it. They took the brake calipers off. They were going to take anything valuable out of the airplane and try to sell it, make a quick buck, then sell the plane to a scrapper who would take it apart and get all the valuable pieces. In this case, this part wouldn't have been good on the plane, but there are plenty of other good parts. And they sell those piece by piece and make a lot of money. Since they decided to do that, they had taken the brake calipers off already and one of the brake rotors. No problem, we were going to upgrade them anyways. They had taken the GPS, which was a moving map Garmin GPS, and the transponder and the radio, and taken those out of the airplane. They took the emergency locator transmitter, removed it from the airplane. All of those are things they can resell quickly and make a good amount of money back. But all of those things are things that we wanted to upgrade and get the best quality that we could, because your life depends on a lot of these when you're out there in the jungle. For instance, that nose gear piece, we can upgrade that to the bigger one, have a safer experience landing on rough fields. The brake calipers needed to be upgraded because of that. No problem, they're missing. The instrument panel, we're talking old equipment. A lot of that equipment had been in the airplane since it was new. This is a 1966 airplane. You do the math and you figure out that's old stuff. That's old electronics. Now, some of it may have been changed out along the way. We don't know for sure. But why not upgrade it at this point? There's no GPS in the airplane now, and in the jungle, it's something wise to have. It gives you the most information, shows you everything about the airport you're going to, including the grass strips in the jungle. They're all in the data that we'll be getting for South America. The instrument package I'm looking at upgrading to is called a Dynon Skyview. It's a company that started out working with experimental aircraft and doing panels for them. And when I built my airplane, I was looking at that as an option. I actually went with a different option for my airplane. But this one was one that I liked. In this case, they've now made their panels available for certified aircraft. It means I can now put their panel inside a Cessna 172, which you could not do before. To replace the gear that they took out of the airplane, the avionics, with equivalent gear right now would probably cost about $7,500. That's why they took that out, because they could make money quickly and recoup some of their cost with the insurance. to replace everything in that panel, everything that's old, all of the old instruments, all of the little dials, the gauges, everything that's there will cost approximately $20,000. And that'll give us a state-of-the-art instrument panel with backups, with artificial horizon, synthetic vision, moving map, ADS-B with you're transmitting your location out. In Ecuador, that doesn't matter because no one has it. In the United States, it does matter because you're required to have it when you're flying anywhere near controlled airspace. There's very specific regulations. It gives us a much safer view. When I flew my airplane with a electronic panel, I was always confident with where I was. You could see at any instant. Yes, it is possible for it to go out. That's why you have an independent backup. Both of these units actually have independent backup batteries, and they have the basics that you need. So if something happened, you lost your engine alternator and you had no power from the airplane, both of them are still powered. They still have their batteries running them. On top of that, they're both redundant. So if the one fails, the other one is your backup. So it's a really, really nice system, really safe. Every plane that we've seen out there in Ecuador already, we've ridden on a few, they all have a GPS. Some of them have them in the panel. Some of them will have them mounted on the yoke or mounted on the dash or in a suction cup on the window. But every single airplane has at least one GPS in it, and they use those. They'll plug in the airstrip they're going to and get all their information, do the trip. They know exactly where to start descending, where they are, before they can even see the airstrip. It makes it more efficient and safer. And it's not that big of a cost on top of what we already would have to do anyways. And instead of keeping all that old stuff, we would rather get the brand new electronic stuff that gives us so much more capability. One of the things I really loved doing with my old system in my airplane is I would have a SD card that was plugged in, and it would log every second every bit of data that it was recording. The attitude of the airplane, the RPMs of the engine, the cylinder head temperatures of all cylinders, the exhaust gas temperatures of all cylinders, the fuel tank level, and everything that it had, fuel flow, everything that it had and could display airspeed, everything like that is recorded. And in this case, it was recorded every second. And then I could go back, put that into my computer, and graph everything out and look at it and determine if there were any trends or problems I needed to be worried about. Sometimes when you're flying, you're very busy with actually flying the airplane, looking for traffic, trying to figure out where you're going, looking to see if there are any cows or goats or dogs or kids on the runway you're about to land in, mud, water puddles, things like that. You're looking at that type of stuff and not necessarily looking at your instrument panel. You can miss some things occasionally. On my old one, I did notice at one point that one of the cylinders was running higher and hotter than all the others. I ended up being able to fix that problem before it became a problem because I could see it in the data afterwards when I was not worrying about flying the airplane, when I was just sitting there at the computer and looking at it. It was really, really useful for following trends like that. So I see that as a safety feature in the airplane. Yes, we could get by with the old-fashioned gauges, with the old-fashioned navigation equipment. People have done it for many years. But when something comes out and it's much safer, it's a better choice to use. You can still pull out a paper map while you're driving down the road on the highway, figuring out where you're going, figure out where you are, where you're going, what's the best road to get there, and do all that while you're trying to drive the car, and it gets to be dangerous. But if you have a little GPS or even on your phone, you can talk to it, and you can tell it, give me directions to, and you name the place. You don't even have to touch it. And it tells you exactly, step by step, audibly and visually, how to get to where you're going, the safest route, the fastest route. It's the same kind of thing. It's a much safer option. It helps you without being obtrusive. It also can give you much more information because that GPS will tell you exactly what your speed is, your estimated time of arrival, any accidents along the way. It'll alert you various things like we just recently drove to Florida and back, and we'd occasionally get an alert for an object in the road, and I'd be looking to see if there was something in the road. And sometimes there was a tire there, sometimes there was nothing there. It alerts you of a stalled vehicle on the side. This is no different. It gives you all this data and really helps lighten your load as a pilot. You can see everything in one little spot, and it's presented in a way that's easy to understand and digest quickly. I've found it to be very simple and very easy to use in my past experience. Now, another thing that we wanted to do, besides the larger wheels and that newer digital instrument panel, is something called a STOL modification. STOL is S-T-O-L. This stands for short takeoff and landing. We're getting a bigger engine on the plane. That already gives us a better capability to accelerate and get off the ground faster. But what it doesn't do is change how the airplane can fly. It just helps you move faster or get going faster. A STOL kit changes the profile of the wing and allows the wing to fly actually slower than it was designed to originally. Now, when this airplane was designed in 1966, they often had to make compromises. They would opt for a simple airfoil, the shape of the wing, that would do the job, but wasn't necessarily the best option. It was not necessarily the best performing wing shape that they could have used. Now, we are looking at installing a Sportsman STOL kit. Basically, it's a cuff that fits on over the front of the wing, and it changes the shape. What this does is allows the plane to fly slower and have better stall characteristics. A stall is not like in a car where an engine stops running. A stall is where the wing stops flying. Now, if you think about it in an airplane, you're flying along, you don't want that wing to stop flying, because if it stops flying, you're not flying anymore, you're falling. Now, it's easy to control those, but with a STOL kit, it can reduce the speed at which the airplane can fly safely. And with this STOL kit, it will enable us to have a softer stall, and you can actually bring the airplane in slower, which means you need less runway to land on. It also means you need less runway to take off on. That makes things safer. You can operate from a shorter strip with more margin for error, and that is also a safety consideration. It's also a pretty easy modification to do. They give you a kit that makes it really easy to install this on the wing, get it in the right position, and attach it. All very similar to work that I did on my own airplane when building it. There is another modification that we are looking at. Right now, it's not certified for use on the Cessnas in the United States. It's allowed in Canada and almost every other country in the world, but we're waiting on authorization in the United States. This modification adds basically 1.5 feet to your wing length on each side. And when you do that, you increase your wing area. With that short takeoff and landing kit and the wing extensions, this airplane could keep you flying as low as 40 miles per hour. That is definitely a better safety margin when you're coming into a short field with trees on either side, mountains at the end. You can't go around, you have to get that airplane down. Coming in slower is actually a safer thing to do. Bush pilots do this all the time. They always put bigger tires on the plane. They put STOL modifications on the plane, everything they can do. They put the bigger engines on the plane so they can get out of those fields quicker. And we're looking at doing the same thing because that's basically what we are going to be doing. So that is basically a breakdown of what we are doing with this airplane. Everything pretty much that we're doing on this airplane is something that we'd planned on doing or is minor maintenance to begin with. All in all, I believe these modifications are going to make this the best airplane that we could have in Ecuador to start with. It's going to serve us really well. It's going to be able to carry 3 people along with the pilot out into the jungle and bring us back safely for a long time. One thing I didn't mention is the engine we're getting is a brand new engine straight from the factory. Unfortunately, right now there is about a 6-month back order on those. So we're going to be doing the other work on the airplane and waiting for that engine to come in before we can install that. Now, the prices I mentioned earlier for a used airplane, you're looking $130,000 to $180,000, $130,000, $180,000 for a good condition airplane with an engine that has 500 to 1,500 hours left on the engine. But you don't know how long that engine's going to last. Getting this new engine is a big plus. doing all this other work to it, there are very few airplanes out there with all of this work done on it. In fact, I haven't seen a single one with all of these options that I've listed done. But if you found one and it had a zero-time brand new engine, I doubt you could find this airplane with all these modifications, the glass panel, the new engine for under $200,000, even in a 1966 airplane. It's just because there's so much added value to it. All that money that's saved will be able to be used to operate the airplane and do our mission, which is flying into the jungle to take pastors, missionaries, and materials out into the jungle to go with them, to give the gospel of Jesus Christ to them, and plant churches. That's the entire goal of Messengers for Christ. We ask that you consider praying for us as we get going on this. I will be producing videos as we work on the airplane. Obviously, right now, I'm not at the airplane. But as we work on the airplane, I'll be producing videos showing you what we're doing, showing you as we get it in shape and ready to go. And then eventually, once we get to the field with it, we will be videoing our flights, videoing the work that we're doing in the jungles, and would love to have you come along with it. So if you would, please consider subscribing to this channel. You'll get notifications when new videos come, and feel free to comment and ask about the work we're doing or any questions you have about what I've said already. I know it's a lot of information, can be a bit confusing. I've done a lot of homework on this, and I believe this is our best option, and we are excited to have you with us. Thank you so much for watching this. Have a wonderful day.